All right, boss, about 30 seconds here.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
All right, welcome everybody to the Bison Media Zone here on this Wednesday morning. We do it each and every Wednesday at 10:35. We're chatting hoops today. Who better to chat hoops with? I'm going to talk his ear off for 2.5 hours tonight. Why not get a head start on it? Is our guy Greg Stemen, who will, of course, be on the call tonight of the Bison and Jackrabbit game. You'll see it live here on Extra at 7 o'clock. Of course, he's coached wherever. However, he's done a great job, and he does it here. How long you been doing the TV bit, though, now? I don't know the answer to that.
You know, I got asked that not too long ago. I believe I'm in my 13th year.
Holy
It's either
cow.
12 or 13. Yeah, exactly. It goes fast, and I'm really blessed and fortunate. I mean, to be able to work with you for WDAY and the companies before this, it's really been a neat opportunity. So thanks for asking.
How did it come about? Who reached out to you?
You know what? It's so funny. I was sitting in my office at a bank, and to be honest with you, I had just interviewed for a local job, and a basketball coaching job, and I had decided, no, I'm going to turn it down because I needed my weekends to spend time with my daughter. And so, I mean, you kind of go, well, if I've been thinking about it this much, why? I wonder if there's a way I can stay close. And I'm not joking. Literally less than 2 weeks later, Jay Elson from Midco calls me out of the blue and says, hey, we need help with USD games. I said, oh, okay. Because I can go down, do a Thursday, Saturday, see my daughter in between. And then Dan Hammer called me not too long after that and said, hey, we need help up at UND. And I said, well, I'm not sure on the schedules. And he goes, don't worry, we already checked it out. So I was doing USD and UND, and with my home base at the time in Oaks, North Dakota. And so, no, it was it's been a blessing, Dom, and the to be able to continue to stay in this profession and work with people like yourself, it's been one of the neatest experiences of my life.
When did you get a sense that, hey, I'm enjoying it, or I'm getting good at it? Like, did you get feedback early on doing this?
I've received a lot of feedback. I will say this. I've never gotten in my mind saying, well, I'm getting pretty good at this. I've never told myself that, I promise you. But people have been very kind. And I always laugh because, you know, when we do like the NDSU UND games, I figure if both fan bases are yelling at me that I'm a homer, I must be doing something right. And so no, like I say, and I've maintained so many relationships through the coaches and even the officials. It's just been a really neat experience.
That's the best part for me, is seeing the officials interact with you, because I have to imagine that was not as courteous or as calm when you're coaching days, correct?
You know, admittedly so, and I have told every single one of them, you've gotten a lot better since I got out of coaching, and I wish there. I mean, there's a little bit of humor intended with that, but it's amazing what objectivity brings to someone when they want to, you know, sit back and actually evaluate the game. And I will say this, and I think I said it during our last broadcast, there's a lot of great coaches, a lot of great players, and a lot of really, really good officials in the Summit League. We're fortunate to have high quality of play and high quality officiating.
I'm interested, though, for early on doing it, did you find it difficult to maybe have to criticize a coach or criticize a decision? Like this, I may want to get back into this. Like, how critical can I be?
Fair question. And to be honest with you, I think what I developed, you know, later in my coaching career, I wish I could say I knew as much as I thought I did early in my coaching career, and I certainly didn't. And you learn a lot over the course of time. There are a lot of different ways to approach different situations, and some people will have different thought processes. And I will say there's been, over the course of my career, and you know, 4 or 5 times where I've maybe said, I really don't understand what the thought process behind that decision was. Doesn't mean I was right. It just means I didn't understand it. And so I'm not interested in criticizing. I'm interested in hopefully bringing in a somewhat of an understanding to the game for the average fan. and kind of what the thought processes are behind some coaching decisions at times and what they're trying to accomplish on both ends of the floor. So I hope I can bring a clear picture from that standpoint. That's always been my goal.
I know the answer to this question. I'm going to ask it anyway. If you got asked to get in now in the Division I level, would you take that opportunity knowing what college basketball is right now?
You know, if it was a choice between that and 10 root canals without Novocaine, I'd pick the root canals. I have so much admiration and respect for the people that are navigating their way through the current environment. I do. But it's just gotten, I just think, out of control.
Yeah.
And I love the seat that I'm fortunate enough to sit in, Dom, and which allows me to stay involved in the game in a manner that I go home happy every night, and so I probably not at this time.
The game is still. I mean, watching the Gopher game last night with Wisconsin, fantastic game. Watching Kansas blow at Iowa State, the game is still great. It's the people around it, the foreign agents around it, have really made it hard, I think, for the average fan who flips on basketball when the football season is done to say, I don't recognize what the game is now, and it's hard to argue that.
I think you make a really valid point, Dom. I mean, you and I think both kind of visited with Matt Merkin. Matt Merkin was the head coach at Minot State, now an assistant down at USD, and I asked him. I said, "Are you enjoying just having to coach?" And he goes, "You have no idea." And I think you heard, when he was telling me that he decided, I'm just going to ask my guys, Division II guys at Minot State, do you have guys contacting you? And their response to him was, "Coach, you have no idea." So if it's just to coach, I couldn't agree more. The quality of the game is still fantastic. And to be honest with you, I don't know that it isn't getting elevated because you have more older players staying longer because they can generate some revenue for themselves. And so you get more mature teams. And so I think the product on the floor isn't suffering. It's the coaches who can surround themselves with people who can manage all of the outside noise. And if the head coaches can just be kind of have the final say and everybody else handles those details and they can still coach their team, that's the ideal situation. I don't know how many guys in the Summit League or at any level have that perfect setup at this point in time.
All right, let's chat here on the court stuff because the way the non-conference played out, I think was what we anticipated, at least St. Thomas being the top team in the net rankings. North Dakota State is right there. South Dakota State is right there. Was there any surprises to you through the non-conference of how things played out on the men's side?
Nothing glaring. What I will say is I wasn't for sure knowing what Dave really had, and Dave's got a really good team. And when you talk about the net rankings, I mean, there's been times when we haven't seen Summit Leagues out of the 200s, Summit League teams out of the 200s. We've got 3 in the 100s right now, I believe, and St. Thomas at the top of that ranking. I've said, and you and I have talked, I think, on the air a little bit, Denver had some really quality road wins at Northern Colorado, at Colorado State, at Montana State. And they USD got them on the road, and so did St. Thomas. So that's welcome to road games in the Summit League.
Correct.
But yeah, and I think they're capable though. And so nothing blew me away. But I just think Dave's team, it ain't going to be easy. That was a hard fought comeback win at Omaha. They had the double overtime win over ORU. They can't take anything for granted, but I think their upside is really, really good.
Let's chat about the game-winning play. We had Dave on yesterday, Greg, to describe it. We're going to show the video of Damari going coast to coast. It reminded me a little of Tyus Edney in the NCAA tournament of way back when. But, I mean, how many guys other than Damari could do that with the kind of speed that he has? And, I'll put your coach hat here. What's Omaha doing? Are they just afraid to foul?
Without question, I mean, that's a concern. And I think that's one of the things you have to address. And I'm not questioning Coach Crutchfield because what he might have asked his players that they may not have executed. But someone like it's hard to get him to change direction. And Wheeler Thomas, once he gets going, I mean, you got to try to maintain some space, and you don't want to risk a foul because then you're putting a good free throw shooter at the line with everything, right there in front of him. But I think that really hurt him. And what people don't understand is I think it was 5.8?
Yeah. Yep.
That's more than enough. I will go back, and there may be fans who remember when I was at Southwest and Tim had some of his first teams up at NDSU. We had a kid by the name of LaRon Dawn, and we came up and we played NDSU, and I think there was like 4.2 on the clock. And this kid's a lot like Wheeler Thomas, really strong kid. And he just got going. He got all the way to the rim and just missed the layup. And so people don't realize that's about how much it takes, about a little 4.5, and you can dribble the length of the floor. So I just think Omaha probably regrets not being able to get Damari to change directions.
Yeah.
But boy, credit that young man. He recognized it, and he was on a mission.
Now, prior to that, the Bison were down 14 at halftime, and then Dave's, was joking with me yesterday about the greatest halftime speech he ever gave, but they shot 69% in the second half, and Andy Stefanowicz is making plays, and Markai Strickland's doing. The guy we got to talk about, and I want to talk about tonight with you on the broadcast, Trayson Anderson's arrival cannot be questioned here. We saw he started his first game against USD, and the Bison did what they did against a depleted South Dakota team, but man,
Right.
his play in the middle has changed things, I think, for the Bison.
He is certainly elevated his level of play, and I've said this more than once during broadcasts, and people know I'm pretty boring. I don't have a wide range, but I love his demeanor. I love his demeanor and the maturity that he plays the game with. He's not hanging his head after missing a short range shot. He's not feeling sorry for himself if he doesn't get a touch when he's got a guy in his back. He just plays, and you love guys like that where you don't necessarily have to script plays for them in order for them to be productive. But his work on the glass, and I said this to some people yesterday when I was having a discussion. I think the move has made both Trayson Anderson and Feddersen better. I think it's taken some pressure off Feddersen. I doubt that there's any position group in the league that puts more production on the floor than Anderson and Feddersen, and they don't play together.
No.
And so I think it's helped both of them. And we've seen it. Feddersen, not hanging his head, makes a game winner, in the double overtime win over ORU. And then Anderson just goes out and just puts monster numbers up at Omaha. And he just does it, his ability to shoot from behind the arc and then also put it on the floor and catch face up and then score with his back to the basket. You can't say enough about his development. And in a way, I don't know that South Dakota State doesn't have somebody in Wilkinson that's maybe exceeding some of their expectations as well.
I want to chat about the Jacks here. We had Coach Peterson on Hot Mic earlier on the day here. They're 9-9. They played a pretty tough non-conference schedule. I don't know. They had the big guy last year in Clough, and obviously you knew the ball was going there. Do they have that guy? Like, they don't have a Zeke Mayo. They don't have a Clough. I'm not saying they're not good, but they don't have those guys. Those Baylor Shireman, those were Player of the Year guys.
Yeah, they were go-through guys, right, Tom? I mean, people that you wanted to have a touch every time down the floor.
Yes.
I think that the strength of their team is I kind of look at Moore, I look at Salyer, I look at Gary.
Yep.
Kind of the experience, the strength. We've talked about how important experience and smart guard play is, and NDSU has it. Even though Stefanowicz is a sophomore, he doesn't play like it. But Wheeler Thomas, Stefanowicz, Carson, you just like to have that grouping of guys that are always under control and always understanding exactly what they want to accomplish from the standpoint of execution on both the defensive and offensive end. And that's a great security blanket for coaches to have. So I think their experience and their age is really important. It takes some pressure off Wilkinson, or he can just kind of go out and play, and he seems to be producing. And then they've got a bunch of other guys that I think have been through a few of the wars, so they're always going to be dangerous, and you can't ever take a night off against them.
I don't think this is a blowout game by any stretch of the imagination. I think we got a great game coming up, but just that's the intriguing part to me is SDSU is different than what we were used to in the past. Right. I mean, we called a game that Douglas Wilson play at the end. That was a fantastic play at the end of the game there when they beat the Bison. That was 3 years ago now.
It's so funny listening to you kind of list off those.
Yeah, right.
I mean, list off those just big time players at South Coast. And I'm not saying they don't have them now.
No.
I'm just you're right. It's more by committee. This is more of a true team effort from a South Dakota State standpoint. And listen, I have a feeling that they believe they're as good as any team in the league, and they've shown it at times throughout the season to this point.
All right, before we let you go here, I got to get a couple words on St. Thomas. We're going to see them on Saturday. I mean, this is a heavyweight week for the Bison. I mean, this is monstrous with the Jacks tonight. And then St. Thomas comes in. They're, right now, as we wake up this morning, Greg, they're 115 in the net. They have that brand new arena. They're playing really, really well. Tower has gotten a couple of high-profile transfers to come back to the Twin Cities. What kind of team are we going to see here on Saturday?
Well, extremely well coached, and I think that's one of the things that you and I have always kind of observed about St. Thomas. I don't know that there's a team in the country that understands, offensive spacing, angles of attack, ways to beat you on the offensive end. I just think they're a high IQ team, very much the way NDSU is as well. They know how to play the game, and they know how to execute John Towers, stuff. And they're fun to watch play, and I think I probably underrate them on the defensive end because I probably don't talk about them
Yeah.
defensively enough. Their great understanding of the game makes them an exceptional team on the defensive end as well. And so when you look at, kind of, you talk about the guys that are coming back, and they've also got that veteran presence with Bierke and
Yep.
the little lefty guard.
Minnesali's back. Yep.
Yeah, Minnesali.
Yep.
I mean, he does a great
Oh,
job.
Ryan Dufault is who you're talking about.
Dufault,
Yes. Yep.
And I think Johnny Tower knew exactly how he was going to make this thing work. He knew that there were going to be guys coming back because Twin Cities gets recruited heavily by Power Four teams, and he knew he's okay being the bounce back guy, the bounce back option, and because he's lost some guys too, so he gets it. He gets the understanding. So I think he kind of prepared himself to say, "Hey, here's how we're going to do it," and they seem to be executing at a high level in all facets.
I appreciate you getting put to work early today. Thanks so much for doing this. I can't wait to see you tonight. Should be a great night.
Always enjoy it. You have a great day.
Thanks, bud. There he goes, Greg Stemen. He'll be joining me tonight, 7 o'clock, for the matchup to the Bison and the Jackrabbits here on WDAY Extra. We'll break. We come back. We'll go through the list of games in the league tonight and this week on the men's and the women's side. We wrap up the Bison Media Zone on this Wednesday morning. We're back after this. All right, wrapping things up here on the Bison Media Zone on this Wednesday morning. All right, we got plenty of games to get to. Let's first start, as we chat on the Summit League, where the men's basketball race is through the first 4 weeks. Here's the standings as we look after the first 4 games. North Dakota State sits on top. They and St. Thomas are each unbeaten. Tommies have played one less game. They had the mini bye to begin. They're at 3-0. Bison at 4-0. North Dakota off to a really nice start. The Fighting Hawks lost at Omaha. Tough one there. Then came back with a buzzer-beating win over Kansas City on Saturday. They're a half game ahead of the Jackrabbits, who are at 2-1. Then USD, and USD, remind you, is playing with basically 6 players the rest of the way. That's going to be a tough road to hoe there for the Coyotes. Denver at 1-3. First year there for Tim Bergstrasser coaching. And remember, Denver is on its way out. This is their last year of playing in the Summit League. Omaha, the reigning champs. Disappointing start. Remember, they lost their first 2, got UND, and then lost, of course, to the Horn of the Bison. Kansas City, which announced yesterday that Marvin Menzies is not coming back, or Monday, as head coach. And then Oral Roberts still looking for their first win. Here's the lineup of games on the men's side. Of course, we've got the Bison tonight with South Dakota State. Oral Roberts plays at Denver also tonight. We'll keep our eyes on that game. And then tomorrow, you've got Kansas City taking on USD. And I'm intrigued about that game in Grand Forks. We'll keep an eye on that one between St. Thomas and UND tomorrow night at the Betty Engelstad Sioux Center for that one between the Tommies and the Fighting Hawks. Meanwhile, on the women's side, we know clearly the top 2 are set to play one another. Bison are 4-0, won 13 games in a row. They have a date with South Dakota State coming up on Saturday in Brookings. The Jackrabbits sit at 3-0. They have won 66 consecutive games against Summit League teams in the regular season. Let me just again say that. 66 in a row. The Jackrabbits have Denver coming up. They play Thursday as opposed to what the Bison do not. And then you see the rest. USD, Oral Roberts, Kansas City, St. Thomas. The bottom is not good, folks. Denver, UND, and Omaha on the women's side is not good basketball. Look at those combined records. You're talking 13 and, let me do some quick math, 39. Yowza. That's what I'm talking about earlier. You can't afford to be losing to any of those teams. The schedule, as we mentioned, Bison plays Saturday against the Jacks. You got Kansas City, ORU tomorrow night. Denver taking on SDSU. UND plays USD tonight. And St. Thomas is at Omaha. It's boiling down to basically it's a 2-horse race in the Summit League to see who's going to win this thing. And the race continues tonight. Don't forget, Bison Jackrabbits. You'll see it live here on WDAY Extra. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock from inside the Shield Center with myself, Sam Getzinger, and Greg Stemen, and our talented crew set to bring it to you to the Jacks and the Bison. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Bison Media Zone. We do it each and every Wednesday at 10:30 here on WDAY Extra throughout the football and basketball seasons. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great Wednesday.